Will you pray with me this morning? Creator God, let the words and meditations of our hearts always be acceptable in your sight, O Lord our God. Amen. Go for the one, the one. I remember the noise of the Mr. Pibb motocross. All those motorcycles racing indoors, can you imagine? In the Omni Coliseum in downtown Atlanta. The Coliseum held 15,000 people. It was a lot back then. I reached down to pick up something and then slipped my hand into my father's hand, or what I thought was my father's hand. The noise deafening. Horrified, I looked up and saw a man I did not recognize. He was definitely not my father. This was in the early 70s, and so all of a sudden I was lost, terrified, in a very large crowd. I remember the stranger looking down at me and asking if I was lost, and I told him my father had just been there. The stranger said he thought we should stay put because he believed that my father would return. And sure enough, after what seemed forever, probably only minutes, my father ran back to where I stood, and he knelt down on the floor. Oh, Emily Ann, I thought you were right behind me. When I saw my father, I was so relieved that I started crying and just clung to him as he knelt and hugged me. My father thanked the stranger in the very large crowd. I've never, ever forgotten, though, that sick feeling of being lost in an ocean of people. The one lost, the relief of being found. In the text today, we hear Jesus speak of the lost sheep and the lost coin, the themes of loss, of searching and relief come through. And today in the text, we hear how Jesus would leave the 99 and go after the one that was lost. I believe that reaching out to people in love was primary for Jesus of Nazareth. It was his life mission to be present for people, to go after the one that was lost and needed help, the one who was without hope, the one without faith, the one being marginalized. Later in this text, the writer of the Gospel of Luke says the Son of Man came to seek out and save the lost. Jesus declares his primary mission is to help lost folks and to show them the life of love. We see this clearly in the text when he tells the story of the shepherd with 100 sheep. One got lost. The shepherd left the 99 to go find the one. He rejoiced over finding the one. The story is followed by a similar parable about a lost coin, and Jesus challenges us in this text to seek the one without hope and joy, the one without faith. One of the best ways to be of help to someone else in this world is sometimes by how we live our very lives, to live like the Christ or to seek to do so imperfectly in this world, a follower of the Christ. Living lives of love and grace and compassion and integrity and justice and service and inclusion. Preaching the gospel with our very lives, using words only if necessary. We can also be present for the one in our lives, for our neighbor, relationally, taking a loaf of banana bread to the neighbor who's been under the weather, maybe even the grouchy neighbor on the street. Anonymously leaving a bouquet of flowers at the door of a neighbor who does not have family nearby. Walking with someone and being willing to be open about our own lives by sharing and then listening. Inviting a neighbor to an event at our church, maybe an event at Ripley Chapel. What a great space Ripley Chapel is. A place that extravagantly welcomes folks in your community. For some people, that may be their only experience of church, attending a concert here That's offering up love. I went to seminary with Jenna Roy, and she would speak of this church and of her great love of this place and its incredible outreach in the community. A few years ago, I was sitting in the office of Pastor Greg Manning in New Orleans. Greg is the Lutheran pastor of Broadmoor Community Church, the same church that I've taken youth to volunteer at for many summers. The church with a massive banner over its front doors that says, "No perfect people allowed." Pastor Greg has a heart for kids that live in the neighborhood around his church, kids that he calls at risk. He has a heart for youth that are caught up in gangs in his neighborhood. I had heard his mother had recently passed away, and I happened to be in New Orleans for a meeting, and I thought, I think I'll stop by and give my condolences in person. Sitting in his office, I asked how a kid was doing that I'd met the previous summer while volunteering. He said, "Oh, Emily, I meant to email you. He had been shot and killed in a drive-by shooting a few months back." It took me off guard. I remember sitting there thinking, I've stopped to relay my sympathy to you for your mother's death, and now I'm the one sitting here in tears over the loss of the one. I asked Greg that afternoon how he kept up hope, how he kept up opening the doors of his church day after day to the youth, to families that would never come on Sunday morning, perhaps. He just faithfully kept offering up help and food and clothing. He quoted for me the number of kids that had found refuge in his church since Katrina. And then in Greg's particular way, he flashed this huge grin. And he said, "But Pastor Emily, I'd do it for the one. If one kid needed us, our doors would be open to feed them and clothe them, let them sit safely and do their homework." Tears rolling down Greg's beautiful face, tears born out of devotion for the one. I've thought about that a lot, being present in our world today for the one person in my path that needs hope, for the one person at the border that needs help, for the one person out on the streets in need of a meal or just a cup of water, the one transgender person being denied care, the one on the margins. Followers of the gospel of love, we try to take our faith seriously, seeking out people in the name of love, seeking out the lost, the afraid, the hopeless, the joyless, having eyes wide open to see the world around us, noticing the man sleeping on the bench and running to our trunks to pull out a fleece blanket to cover the one, seeing the lady at the stoplight with a sign saying that she's hungry and reaching over and grabbing a blessing bag filled with snacks and socks and toiletries and handing it to the one. And maybe handing over a $5 bill to, or even a 20, if that's all we have. Not worrying about what the money will be used for because that's between them and their Creator. Disciples do not walk by someone begging without looking them in the eye and saying hello to the one. For many, many years, my mother spent her life working with the unhoused in downtown Atlanta, over 45 years. It's where I learned not to look away at stoplights, at people begging, because that crushes a person's very soul, but rather look them in the eye, greet the one, and ask how their day is going. It's also where I learned to give out blessing bags. I thought everybody's mother drove around with 1,000 pairs of white socks in their trunk. It's where I learned the unhoused are the faces of the Christ. It's also where I learned never to make assumptions. As one day I stood at the shelter in downtown Atlanta helping my mother, chatting with an ex-executive of Coca-Cola who had become a drug addict after rotator cuff surgery and ended up on the street. The one. It was Thanksgiving weekend one particular Sunday in Atlanta, and I'd come to see my mother, but that meant going to church with the unhoused at the Gateway Center in downtown Atlanta. And after the service that day, a man started talking with me. He said, "You know, we all call your mother Mother." I said, "I've learned to be fine with that." He said, "I was a veteran, and your mother helped me get legal help and doctors, and now I work and pay rent, and I actually live nearby. But I still come to the shelter to church here." And I asked him, "Why?" "In case I can be of encouragement to the one," he said. The one person who needs to see that they can get help, that they're worthy of help. I thought of the one sheep that Christ returned for, lifted up and put on his shoulders, this lone person standing there, the one sheep. Did he bend down and pat the sheep? Do you think Jesus had to unentangle the sheep from the brush of life? From the thicket, from the snares of this world? Did Jesus lovingly embrace the sheep and lift them high up safe on his shoulders, safe from the world all around? Do we do that for others? I thought to myself, do I do that? Do we go after the one and lift it up, lifting up another person's day, sending an encouraging text, making a call? In the beginning of this text, it says, "By this time, a lot of men and women," I love this, "of doubtful reputation were hanging around Jesus, listening intently, and the religious leaders weren't pleased. They weren't pleased at all. They growled. He takes in sinners and eats meals with them, treating them like old friends." Their grumbling triggered the story of the lost sheep. May we take in sinners always and eat meals with them because, folks, we are them. May we remember the one person who needs to be rescued, to be lifted up. May we never forget that we too are no different from the person on the street corner. May we act like disciples, seeking out people, living our lives unashamed of the gospel of love that we profess to believe in. And perhaps may we remember most of all that the shepherd went after the one. God seeks us out when we are lost and fearful. We don't have to go seeking for the divine. Oh God, be with the one this day, the one who is without hope, the one out there in need of love, the one on a street corner longing to be greeted and treated like one of your own, the one on the margins, the one victim of war, the child of violence. May we be Jesus, the hands and feet of the Christ this day. And may we remember you would return for the one, oh God. The one kid at Broadmoor Community Church, the one begging on the street corner, the one addict after shoulder surgery. But most of all, Creator, may we never walk past the one, neglect seeing the one. For if we do, then we will have turned away from you, the Christ.